Greetings, YouTube. Recently, I found myself in conversation with a number of people here on YouTube, both subscribers and just other YouTube denizens, concerning things dealing with sexism. Now, someone asked me if I believed in, and this is their terminology, not mine, the patriarchy theory. I said that I did, in fact, accept that the patriarchy is part of reality. They then tossed a very poorly made straw man out in front of me in an attempt to pull me into a debate. And I neglected to bite because it was very poorly done, and the person was showing that they really didn't have any idea what they were talking about. They also revealed that they were a hardcore misogynist. I began to play with the individual in question, taking the whole kind of a lighthearted stance about the entire thing. I think I may have been slightly tasteless at one point and referred to him as a court jester. When he finally realized that no matter what he said, he was not going to drag me into a debate on his terms. I was not going to let him frame the conversation. He then used the term liberal as an insult, which I don't consider liberal to be an insult. And then his final comment was to infer that I possessed a mangina, the contraction of the words man and vagina. Now, that right there is a projection. This individual feels that if someone were to infer that he had a feminine characteristic, and the most feminine characteristic there is the vagina, if he were to have that kind of a characteristic, that it would be deeply insulting to him. So because he would feel that to be deeply insulting, because he would feel that the person was holding him in contempt, and he himself holds women in contempt, he then used that insult against me, except it's just a word. I don't consider it an insult. I consider it a badge that someone proudly wears to declare that they are a misogynist and very likely a member of the men's rights movement. And it's also a very good example of male-on-male sexism. Men using sexist terminology to police the behavior of other men. And you see this all the time. I've been online for a long time now. And I've heard a lot of people, and I've actually heard this in real life as well, not just online, but I've heard a lot of people in my life make jokes about prison rape. And to the best of my knowledge, every single one of them was male. And that is an example of male-on-male sexism. The idea of being penetrated in a sex act, willing or unwilling, is so anathema to certain men that they can't think of a worse event. Well, rape in general is the worst, one of the worst things that can happen. The only thing worse than rape is murder, in my opinion. But the idea of being made into a submissive individual, and that's how these men are viewing women as submissive. They are the receivers, not the givers. They are the catchers, not the pitchers. And that's male-on-male sexism. And, for example, when men call other men pussy, it is not a term of endearment. Again, it's projection. They can think of nothing worse than for someone to think of them as possessing a feminine characteristic, and the most quintessential feminine characteristic is a vagina, pussy. So they use it as a term to insult, to police. They're saying, stop behaving this way, you have to behave this way, this rigid way. As long as you're within here, you're a man. You're masculine. You're one of the brotherhood. And if you stray outside that, anywhere else, well, then you're just lesser. At best, a second-class citizen. A submissive. To be held in contempt. To be condemned. To not being masculine and not being a male. And I've encountered people, some honestly and sincerely wanting to deal with these messages they're receiving from the male population around them. And for some reason, some of them gravitate towards the men's right movement, thinking that these are the people that are their allies, when in actuality, they are the perpetrators of these horrible stereotypes. And the worst perpetrators of these horrible stereotypes. So I suggest, when people are honest, and that people that are not members of the men's right movements, people who have not committed themselves to a sexist and misogynistic worldview, but people who are in a position where they're trying to find answers, I suggest, if you want to ally yourselves with people who know a lot about male sexism, the people you want to ally yourself with are the feminists, particularly women feminists, because they've been dealing with male sexism for over a century. And they are very aware it exists, and they are very keen at identifying it and pointing it out. Unfortunately, when they do this, it upsets a lot of men, because they don't like to be shown that they are in fact acting in misogynistic, sexist manners. They don't like the fact that they are being shown that they are applying these same misogynistic and sexist manners to women everywhere around them. And not just their co-workers, not just women in the street, but they're applying them to their mothers, to their sisters, to their wives, to their daughters. That they are perpetuating these male stereotypes, and that they are imposing those male stereotypes upon their fathers, their brothers, their sons, their family members, people that they're supposed to have affection for, love for, and support, and they're tearing them down, and they're shoving them into a box that says this is how you are supposed to be a man, and if you are not a man this way, then you are not a man. And the only person that should decide how a man is supposed to act is that individual man. Just as the only person that should tell a woman how a woman is supposed to act is that individual woman. And I don't know anyone else in the world that's better at identifying this and pointing these things out, and helping us to move towards a position of letting everyone define themselves than feminists. And I don't know any group that is better at perpetuating these stereotypes of male-on-male sexism than the men's rights movement. I've been putting off this whole conversation for quite a while, but the conversations I've had in the last week have brought it to a head. And I finally decided I had to say something. I am grateful for one thing, though. When men use the terms pussy, mangina, it's a really easy identifier that they are not looking for an open and honest dialogue. They are at best looking to shove me into a box, to tell me what it is and isn't to be a male. And that's not their job. I decide what it is to be a male. I decide how I behave. No one else tells me. No one else can define that for me. And I'm tired of listening to it. I'm tired of being told how to behave. I'm tired of being told that reality doesn't exist because it infringes upon the privilege that some men enjoy in the world. That when they're told that women have to have the same rights as them, that they feel if it's a zero-sum game, that if a woman has rights, then they lose rights. And the system isn't perfect. There are bad female feminists out there. There are bad male feminists out there. People that say hurtful, hateful things. Court systems are not always fair. Society isn't always fair. But it has been my experience, and the reading I have done till now, that there are far more healthy members in the feminist community than there are in the sexist, misogynistic men's right movement. And you're going to say, well, you're biased. You're right. I am. Because my personal experience has created that bias. I have no illusion that feminism is 100% pure white. Isn't that a lovely bit of racism? We always think of white as positive, don't we? But I don't think it is. I know it isn't. But I know that it's more right than the alternative, which is sexist and misogynistic and hateful and hurtful and limiting as opposed to expanding. So I'm kind of looking forward here to actually open a real dialogue